Hello again, this is the course of computer programming and we are going to continue the section of multi-dimensional array, and in the last section I will explain a little bit about array list. Last time we already did some examples on the multi-dimensional array. So we learned about the rack arrays and we learned about the processing of two-dimensional arrays. Okay. And yeah, we have one example at the time. How can we pass the two-dimensional array? So let's go to the next example. Yeah, after we pass the two-dimensional arrays to methods, we can use the multi-dimensional array to grade. Okay, grading. What is grading? Grading means I want to know how good a person when they do the multiple choice tests. Okay? So this is the grading for multiple choice tests. So the objective is to write a program that grades the multiple choice test. Is automatically graded. For example, I have the student as the row, and student 0. The answer of the problem or the question 0 is A. The question for the problem 1, this one. So this is the problem. When they have the problem 0, the answer is A. The question number 1, the answer is B. The question number 2, the answer is A. The question number 3, the answer is C, and so on. And the key is this one. Okay. So if the answer is the same with the key, then it is correct. If the answer is not the same with the key, then it is not correct. Okay, so you want to know how many of the answers are correct, and that will be the grade. So let's see, how can you make the program for this one? You can check the grade exam. Yeah, there is one function, there's one code that I already shared to you. In the main method, we have the answers. So the answers are a collection of character. Okay? So it is in the two-dimensional arrays. The first dimension is the student. Okay, so the row are the students and the columns represent the questions. So we have the A, B, A, C, C, D, E, and so on. So it is representing the answers of student 0, or yeah, maybe because the index start from 0. So yeah, we just said that student 0. We have the keys, and the keys is placed in one variable, and it is one-dimensional array. And we want to go for each of the answer. So we want to create for all this the answer. How can we create that one? Now we will do the for loop. So there are two for loops because we know that it is a kind of matrix. So the first is to create the answers. We want to create all the answers according to the length. And then I want to create for each of student. How can we create for each of the student? First, we can just initialize the value 0 to the new variable, which is correct count. And we will do the loop from 0 until the answers dot I answers in the position of I the length. So it means it is in the one row for one student, and I want to know for each of the answer. Question number 0, question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, and so on. And then I would like to know if the answers ij is the same with the keys j. Okay, so the keys here, we have the value 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And I want to know if the answer of the student 0, comma j, comma j, comma j. So we want to match for each of the column. If it is the same, then just add the correct count. Okay. And after you finish with all this, then you want to show the number of correct counts for each of the student. So if you run this, then you will get the number of the correct answers of the students is this one. Okay, so you have yeah, student 0 there are 7, student 1 there are 6, student 2 there are 5, and so on. Okay, the other example is about how can you calculate the nearest points. So the problem is finding 2 points nearest to each other. So let's suppose I have this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 0 means the point number 0, and we have the x and y. We have another point -1, -1. So we have x and y again. We have number 2, 1.1, point number 3, and yeah, so on. So how can we find the nearest point? Yeah, if you okay, I think you remember when you do your exam on maybe in your high school, you know, if we want to calculate the nearest 2 points, we can use the Euclidean distance, for example. So let's use that distance, and let's go to the Eclipse. We can find the Java file, find nearest points. So I already shared this code, find nearest point. And in this Java class, we have one more method, which is distance. And yeah, we are having one input. Okay, so the input here is the first is to input how many points that you want to insert. So this is the number of points, and the number of points will represent the number of rows. And for each of the points, we will have 2. Why we have 2? Because we have x and y. Okay, so we have x and y. So that's why we have 2. And for every point, we want to loop. We want to loop from I until the length of the points. The length of point is the number that you inserted. So if you have like 5 points, then yeah, it will be looped until 5 times. And then you need to insert the numbers, and the numbers is a double, and you will insert it to the points I0, points I1. So this 0 means this is the x and this is the y. And let's make one assumption that yeah, P1 and P1 is 0 and P2 is 1. So that's just initial the 2 points. And if you want to know the shortest distance, so you can just call the distance. So the distance is a method. Okay, so if you click control, okay, so you can click control here, and then you can just click this, and you will see this one. This is the formula. Okay, the math.sqrt. Do you know what is sqrt? It is the square root. Okay, so the square root here. Okay. So the square root in this case, yeah, you want to subtract first the x2 minus x1 multiplied by x2 minus x1. So it is the same with the formula, like x2 minus x1 power of 2. Okay, so if I can draw something like the, yeah, if it is in the format like x2 minus x1, okay, and then you will do the square, okay, and then plus, okay, y2 minus y1, okay, and then you will also do the square, okay, and oops, yeah, oops, something wrong with, okay, yeah. And then you want to make the square root, okay, square root sqrt. So it does sqrt represent the shorten of the square root. So after you have the square root of this formula, then you can know the distance between those 2 points. Okay, so yeah, we have the points here. Okay, so that's why we will multiply with the same number because we have the power of 2. Okay, if you want to know the distance between the 0 and 1, then yeah, this is the distance. So you need to enter the point p1, comma 0, point p1, comma 1, and then you can check the p2, comma 0 and p2, 1. Okay, so it means there are 2 points and you want to calculate the distance. But if you want to check the distance for each of the point that you inserted, okay, so you will do with the for loop. Okay, so the for loop will be it sorry. So it is started from 0 and then it goes to the length of the points, and then the next will start from I plus 1. It means I want to go to the next point. Okay, and yeah, for every point I will calculate the distance, and let's see the shortest distance. What is the shortest distance? We have the shortest distance is this one. If the distance is less than the shortest distance, then let's update the P1 and let's update the P2. So let's update the P1 and let's update the P2. So it means once I know a point which is very close in the distance, I need to check the other kind of distance. And if there is another distance which is lower than shortest distance, then I will update it. Okay, so this is the updated one. And final one, I would like to show the closest 2 points. So the closest 2 points means I want to use the P1 and I want to use the P2. So the P1 is the X and then P2 is the, yeah, P1 is the point or the location of, or the index of the first point, and then P2 is the index or the location of the point number 2. Okay. So if you run this, let's suppose you have the okay, let's suppose you have this -1, 3, -1, -1, and 1 and 1. Okay, so let's just enter 3. Okay, -1 and 3, and then -1, -1, and then let's say 1 and 3. Okay, just okay. So you will see that the closest 2 points are -1, 3 and 1, 3. Okay, so you will get this result. We will deal with this example more in the next chapter, which is about the object-oriented. Okay. In the multidimensional arrays, occasionally you will need to represent n-dimensional data structures. In Java, you can create n-dimensional arrays for any integer n. The way to declare two-dimensional array variables and create two-dimensional arrays can be generalized to declare n-dimensional arrays. It means like if n is greater than 3, then you can just put the square bracket more than 2. Okay, and then you need to define the size of the array. If the size is 10, 5, and 2, then you can just declare the integer number for each of the square bracket. If you have 4 dimension, how? Then you can just put one more item here, the square bracket. Okay, and then you need to put one more, like for example, the size is 4. Yeah, like this one. Okay. So that's all for the multidimensional array. And the next is one example that we can use with the array list. Why we need to use the array list? Because we want to use array, but I do not know how big is the array that I want to use. Okay, so the array list is one of the Java collection framework. Yeah, among the framework we can use like set, we can use list, we can use maps. Okay, and I do not want to discuss the detail of this array list, but it is one of the basic data structure. And I will just explain one example how to use the array list. And if you want to use this array list in your like team project, that yeah, you can also use it. Okay, and this array list is a resizable array. I call this is resizable because you don't need to explain the size in advance. In the array, in the array that you learned before, you always mention the size. Okay, for example, this one, you need to know the size. So the size is number of point and 2. Okay, so it means you need to know how big the array that you need to prepare. But in the array list, you don't need to do that one. Okay? So the array list is just using the import Java util, and then yeah, once you know the type of the data like string or like numbers, then you can just use it. Okay. So using this array list, it is more flexible because it is resizable. So you don't need to care about the size. When you declare the array list, yeah, you can just declare like this one. Okay. Yeah, of course you need to import one function, and then yeah, mention what is the data type because it is important for the array list. And if you know that the data is string, so you can have the cars. Cars is the data that you already defined for this array list. Array list string cars. So every element in the variable cars will be string. So we will need to create new array list string, and we will add cars at Volvo. In this case, the first element will be the index 0. The second element will be the index 1. The next element will be the index. Okay, so this is the index 0, this is the index 1, this is the index 2, this is index 3, and so on. So it is a sequence. Whenever you add a new element, then it will be the next of the integer number. If you want to access, you can just use get. Okay, so this one is add. And if you use get, it means you want to get the element 0. How to change an item? Okay, so you can just change, let's say, I want to change the index 0. So the index 0 is Volvo, I want to change to Opel. Then yeah, you can set the index 0 as Opel. Or you want to delete, for example, okay, I do not want to include this car. Then you can just say remove, and it is the index. So if we want to remove the index 0, then yeah, it will remove only the index 0. But if you want to remove all items, then you can just say clear. So all items in the array list, like the cars, it will be deleted. If you want to know the size, okay, so the size is the length of the array. Then you can just use the cars. Cars is a variable name, and then the size. Size means the yeah, it is the method to get the number of elements in your array list. And if you want to loop, yeah, so you can use this one for integer I equals to 0, and then I less than cars dot size. So you know this cars dot size is the number of elements that you have in the array list, and I will be added by 1. So you will print for every cars, which is the cars dot get I. So I is the index that you have in the array list. You can use another kind of loop. Okay, so today I'm going to teach you another kind of loop, which is for each loop. Okay? For each means you don't need to define the index. You don't need to define the I, which is 0 or I plus plus. Okay, in this case, you need to define the variable, and then you need to define the condition, and then you need to define the action that you want to do after you finish the statement in this part. Okay, But for this, for each loop, you just design. You need to define the object. So what is the object in the cars? Okay, I know that it is string. Then you just call string. Okay, and then I means the object that you want to get. The cars is the array list. Okay, so when you print line the I, it will give you the value. So Volvo, BMW, Opel, that will be printed. Okay. So let's see the example in the Java. Okay. So I give you two examples. Simple array list. Okay. Yeah. As I mentioned to you, you need to import the java.util.array list. And in this case, we have one array list, and the variable name is cars, and it will contain the string. So we include Volvo, BMW, Ford, Mazda, and then when you want to check the cars, so you can just do the loop, and then you can print the cars.getI. So we want to know for every element. I means the index, which is from 0 until the size. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And yeah, I also give you the example using the short loop or the for each loop. So let's check later. Yeah. We can do the set, like I mentioned to you, set 0 Opel. So I want to change the value of index 0. Index 0 in this case is Volvo. So I want to change the Volvo to Opel. You can use this one to print cars. Okay. If you want to remove the index 0, so you want to change, you want to delete the index 0, then it will be removed. The other elements will move. Okay, so the element 1, 2, 3, it will be moved forward. Okay. So let's see if I run this. Yeah, you will get the Volvo, BMW, Ford, and Mazda. Okay, so if I close this one, for example, yeah, I don't want to use this one, and I want to open this one. Okay, so this is the same case like what I already explained in the for each loop. So I just use string because I know that or in the cars, all the elements are string. So I use string and then just print this line. Then yeah, it will show the same way. Okay. And let's say I want to set the index 0 as Opel. Okay. Let's see, I just want to give the separator. Okay. This is separator. Okay. Okay, and then after I set a new one, let me just delete this one. So if I run the things here, yeah. The first, you have the value Volvo, BMW, Ford, and Mazda. After you change the first into Opel, then when you print again with the string, with the for each loop, then you will get the new value, which is Opel. Okay. Now, how if you want to remove? Okay. After you remove, let's say I just have another for loop here. Let's say I have another separator. Okay, I just put another separator here before the for loop. Okay, then yeah, you can see Opel has been deleted and the remaining data is only BMW, Ford, and Mazda. You can use cars.clear in order to delete everything. Okay. The next example is simple array list integer. Okay, let's see what is simple array list integer. So, okay, in this example, I want to include the integer number. You will have question why we need to use integer with big I. Usually, we have the integer with a small I, like this one. Example, integer x equals to 0. So you need to define the variable with this int. Usually, this is the way you define. We call this is the primitive type. Okay, primitive data type. You already know the primitive data type. It can be integer, double, character. Yeah. So that's the primitive data type. But we can use also another kind of data type, which is an object. So integer here is an object. So you can use the integer, yeah, with some other kind of method or some other kind of values. Okay. And when you do this one, I want to mention that, yeah, this data type should be in the class. So if you, let's say, if you know double, okay, double y equals to 0, okay, double is another primitive, but for this one, you cannot use double, okay, so it will be error, and you cannot use integer, it will be error. So you need to use an object. Object means double with a big D, okay. But yeah, there will be error because I put this on as integer. So you just get back this one integer. And this is the variable name, my numbers, and I have this array list. So every numbers that I want to have will be an integer number 10, 15, 20, 25. And then I'm using the for each loop. Okay, this is interesting. You know that the data type is integer with the big I, but when you do the for each loop, you need to use the primitive data type again. Okay, so that's the way to deal with the array list with numbers. Okay, the integer or double, you need to use like this way. So if you run this code, okay, the number will be 10, 15, 20, and 35. Yeah, I guess that's all for the multi-dimensional array and the array list and how can you pass the array in the method. Okay, and there is one question for me. If you have the multi-dimensional array, can you try to sum all the elements by row? Okay. So summing by row. So if you have various row, how can you sum all the rows? So with I think you have this, yeah, summing the elements by column. Then how if you want to sum all the elements by row? Can you do that? Yeah, try by yourself. I think it's not an assignment. Okay, it's not participation, but you can try by yourself. There might be some question about this one on your final exam. Okay, so thank you for joining this video, and let's see you on another video.